Man, guys, another big win tonight. 3-in-1 day, 3-0 in the NBA. That makes it an 8-1 run in basketball now. We did have the one loser on the Thursday night football game for 2
1 second, Ben, because I think some of the guys want to count the football game as two losers because they lost by 40 points. Guys, 1 point, 40 points. It's one bet. So, hey, that game sucked. I guess let Ben start with the intro, and then we'll go back into last night's hilarious. I actually found a hilarious game. If this guy doesn't get fired today, I don't know what's going to happen. But go ahead, Ben. Sorry to interrupt.
Nah, no worries. Yeah, it was after the first 2 fumbles in the first quarter. That game was done and cooked. And better to lose a game like that than to lose it by a hook in the back end of the game. So knew that one was toast. And, yeah, like you said, it was just funny at that point. Good thing we weren't on the under. Looked at the halftime under, too. Good thing we weren't at that. It's could have been some more losers on that disgusting football game. So, as it's only 2 units, NBA still had a good night. 3 units. 2 units on the Cavs. We had the 2 units on the halftime with the craziest cover in basketball this season for us. Portland minus 6.5. In the second, they went down as much as 30 on the game. We needed them within 8. They closed out with the final 14 points, Sean. That was just absolutely ridiculous.
Streak buster. Really. That's what I call last night. And for our guys that just follow us here on the podcast, guys, again, this is why you want to be a Massa Edge member. 2 games late last night, and Portland was one of them, a halftime bet. Hey, there's no doubt about that. We walked into that one. But I always say the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. He's taketh away on plenty of games, so he gave it last night. Portland scores the last 14 points. We bet the halftime in that game. Portland goes up, Utah goes up 15 in the first half. Shooting, I think it was 57%. They were on the second half of a back-to-back, shorthanded, no George, no Markkanen, no Collins, just against the rested Portland team who was getting guys back, Brogdon and Ayton. Just told me, hey, Portland's got to come and own the second half. There's got to be some regression, and you'll see some tired legs. Not the case when Utah went up by 30. But again, scored the last 14 points, and these are the things that break these ridiculous, horrendous streak that we were on. So right after we followed that up with Clipper game, when they announced Paul George out, obviously we know the line's going to go down, but this game was about 5.5 most of the day, 5.5. The line went down to 2.5, which tells me that they were expecting George to play. He's not really 3 points to the line. You got to remember, the deeper a team is, the less points that guy is going to be to that team. Where Jokic used to be 7 points on the year that Murray was out, now he's worth less because you got a number 2. But getting back to the game, we laid 2.5. That game even went down lower. It went to 2. So we got gifted a game by the other shops, pushing a game down. Look, I just think Golden State's a dead team. We've been talking about it. And I think the Clippers are putting their stuff together. We mentioned yesterday how even with Paul George out, this is a deep team. Powell, Westbrook, Thies, these guys come off the bench. And Powell, man, he was a game-high plus 20 in the plus-minus, just getting it done. So we'll take that W. We'll take that Portland backdoor cover, and we're off and running. I told you guys, can't stay the same. Mathematically impossible. Beat the number, you're going to beat it. I also put a little video on Instagram. So every once in a while, our members questioned our lines. Guys, we would never, ever send out a line that's not what we bet the line at. Yep. Lines move quickly, and if you only got one book to rely on, I'm sorry, but I don't. I've got multiple books. We give you the bet that we make, how much we make on it, and what price. And I showed that video as a guy said he saw 6.5, I think minus 125. We're not laying no 125s on halftime bets. And so I sent that video. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the John Massa page on Instagram. So again, for you guys that follow us on the podcast, we love having you here. But if you're not a member, you missed 5 units, plus 5 units, a 2-unit bet on Portland at halftime, 3 units on the Clippers.
Yeah, and the variance in books having multiple outs, especially on halftime bets, especially in basketball, those lines will variance a lot more than they would, say, on pregame. So Books will move and adjust a bit more strongly based on the action they get compared to where it's, global market move. Everyone adjusts the same. So halftime bets especially, there'll be more variance. Make sure you guys have those multiple outs. John, Brandon Staley, let's just touch on it. We laughed at the start here, but wow, 63 points for the Raiders after scoring 0 the week before. Crazy. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in football, and I will be shocked if Brandon Staley is not fired by the end of the day.
When you see turnovers like that, I mean, this team just didn't come to play, and that's your main job as a coach is get your team ready to play. They didn't come to play for the game. Turnover after turnover. It's an embarrassment. He's not a good coach. I mean, we're saying this for he lost the most games in close field goal or less, or one-score games or less. The guy's just not a good coach. There's a lot of talent there. Yes, right now they're banged up. Look, they went into that game last night with your backup quarterback and their entire top 3 wide receiving core on the injured list. Williams, they lost earlier in the year. Keenan Allen sat out, and we thought the other kid was coming back, and it didn't look like he played. But regardless, you can't come with nothing, and that's what they came with, absolutely nothing. Where on the other hand, Raiders, after getting shut out, really played. So the interim coach, Pierce, he got them up, and they came with a game, and that was without 2 offensive linemen and without Jacobs, who led the league in rushing before. So hats off to Raiders and their coach, head coach Pierce and Staley. Get him the fuck out of here. I guess let him finish out the season, but get him out of there and get that team for the last few years has been too good. Look, if you have to say in the last few years, who gives the Chiefs the toughest game, who would you say it is?
Chargers every year.
So they can play with anybody. They just need a head coach to put them over the top. There's a lot of talent there, and they did not show any of it last night.
Yeah, and to see where to go coaching route. There were some rumors last offseason about Sean Payton maybe going there, and he ended up, obviously, State ended up in Denver, and I'm already starting to see rumors Bill Belichick could end up there. Don't know if he'd make that West Coast trip, but they need that big coaching change. And
let's talk about that. Do you think Bill Belichick goes anywhere now at 71 for a fresh start? I mean, there's such a legacy there. And the guys, you think the last couple years going to hurt his legacy, or Brady go? You're not hurting Bill Belichick's legacy. But I just don't know at 71, like I said, to undertake another start like that. But what I will say about Peyton, look at the job this guy has done in Denver. I mean, after a horrible start, after being a laughingstock, he gets 7. They got 63 put on him last night. He got 70 put on him in Miami. But they've made a total turnaround, and they've cut some stars, especially on defense, to get there.
Yeah, as far as Belichick leaving, I will say I don't think so. Obviously there's always going to be rumors. Last week at the Army-Navy game, I mean, that was the first time I've ever seen him laughing. TV personality. He was at the booth at the halftime pregame. Maybe he goes that route. That's what Brady's doing next year also. Brady's getting that 10-year, $300 million deal to go to Fox. Maybe Belichick takes something up like that as well. Bit less stressful, I would say, for him at his age.
We'll see what he does. They came up with a big game. Let's see what they can do against the Chiefs this Sunday. Chiefs starting to feel that rope tighten around their neck. And as we just said, John Payton's doing over in Denver. All of a sudden, Denver just one game behind the Chiefs. That could be interesting.
Yeah, that KC offense definitely going through it. We'll see if they have their bounce back. Let's dive into this NBA slate we have going on today. Pretty good-sized slate tomorrow as well. After we hop off this, we're already going to be finishing up prep for Saturday's games, waiting for those lines to open up to pounce and attack. Currently no bet on this slate today. Still some injuries we're waiting on. And then obviously halftime bets, always a possibility later on tonight. Those have been going well for us the last couple of nights. You got the Lakers and the Spurs. Second game, 2-game set here. Lakers obviously get it done first the other night. They cover our line. They don't cover the closing line, holding on to win that one by 3. Won 5 straight meetings. That was the whole AD versus Wemby. Both had big games. Spurs shot the shit out of the ball, 43% from 3. Want the Lakers in this spot. Got to see who's in. LeBron and AD both questionable. You had AD with a little bit of the ankle turn, and LeBron obviously a little bit more of a rest the other night. Don't think he's going to be sitting out this game, especially considering it's the primetime ESPN game, Wemby versus LeBron. These are the ones Silver wants him in.
LeBron will be in there. They gave LeBron off the other night. What I'm thinking they may do is give AD off tonight. After he had that big night, he did tweak that ankle a little bit, but he stayed in the game. Surprisingly, because usually AD turns an ankle and he's going for 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. Lakers went into the fourth quarter with an 18-point lead and blew every bit of it except 1 point and barely hung on and got us to the cover. One more example, guys. Beat the number, beat the game. These are the games that count. There's not going to be a ton of them during the course of the year. But those games that we lay a 2.5 and the game closes 3.5 and it lands 3, so you turn an L into a W. That's the flip-flop. That's where you're going to see the money. Anyway, caught that one. Also caught Portland last night. As we said, we laid 6.5. That game went up to 7 just about everywhere, or 6.5 with a lot of juice. At 7, you're a push. 6.5's the winner. Those are the games that count. Anyway, get back to the Laker game. Expect LeBron in. AD, a legitimate question mark. San Antonio can't win. When's the last time they won, Ben? Can we bring it up? Have they won since November, turn the clock? I know Detroit Pistons haven't won since November.
Yeah, I think it was early November, the Spurs' last win there. Let me get the exact one here. November 2nd. So, yeah, early November for that last win. 18
straight losses, 6-12 against the spread. Just I want nothing to do with this team. If to me this line is in the middle, I would make this line even higher than the 7.5 it presently is. If AD and LeBron are both in, if AD's out, I'd make it a little tick lower, and that's what I call the line is in the middle. They're waiting for the confirmation on AD.
We're going to have the Pacers going on to Washington. Pacers coming off that crazy game against Milwaukee. High scoring yet again. Got to 266 on that one. Then you have this Wizards team, just as bad as the Spurs and the Pistons. Only win there was against the Pistons. 1-15 their last 16. 1-8, 2-7 against the spread at home. No interest in being on the Wizards in this game. Would only be looking at Indiana and the over. This matchup trends really high scoring. And both these teams obviously been bottom of the league in defense for several years now, but Indiana hasn't been scoring at this level. So they've had games in the past 3-4 years that have gone up above 300 points. Earlier this season wasn't quite that high. It did go over. This total is now 10 points higher than it was from then. And I think for good reason, the way these two teams playing 29th and 30th in points allowed, could only like the over on the total here, even at 259, gone all the way up.
So let me first say, we don't have a bet yet in NBA, and this game, Indiana, is the only game that's moved more than a half a point. This from the opener. The opener on this game was 7. It is up to 8.5 right now. One of the reasons that line has moved up, Poole is questionable for Washington. As far as the total, these numbers are now ridiculous. It's 260. But with that being said, Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks just went over the highest total in the last game in over 30 years. So this is the state we're at with the Pacers right now. Wizards, same story. They've given up a ton of points. Big number here. I make the number a little lower if Poole is in. If he's out, this is the right number. It's a big number on the road, and Pacers play at Minnesota tomorrow. So, again, right now, for me, no bet. This number got to come down if Poole's in. Obviously, it'll tick a little bit up if Poole is out.
Then we have Pistons going on to Philly. Second game of a home-and-home. 76ers got them the other night by 18. That was another game that went over. Philly, 8 straight overs. We've been on each of the last 3 of them. This game, 3 points higher, 2.5 points higher than last week's last total in that last meeting. Chance we end up on that over again. You have Embiid, another big game, 40-plus against them. He loves playing against these bad teams. He always gets his stat pattern in against Detroit, Washington. You have Philly now, 4 straight wins. They're 9-3 straight up against the spread at home. Can't back a team that's lost 21 straight. I don't care how big this number is. Philly keeps on getting them. No interest here in the Pistons. Wouldn't lay this number with the Sixers. If you're laying that many points, you might as well just be on the over. It's going to be easier to cover on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, so The Texas Rangers have had more wins since November 1st, since the Detroit Pistons. Texas Rangers have not played in 6 weeks. This is horrible. This is now we're looking at 21 straight L's. They've only covered 5 of the 21. 16.5. This is one of those home and home series. You figure, well, Philly could coast here. Even with that, I just can't. I can't put anybody's money, my money, your money on this Detroit Piston team right now. Have they hit rock bottom yet? I don't know. But I look at that squad, and even that, especially with Bogdanovich back now, he could score. Cunningham is got a future. Hayes is a decent player. They've got some decent players. Now, they're not a playoff level team, but they shouldn't be this bad, losing 21 straight. So I don't know what the makeup is. When things just go like this, and this, look, I can't bet Detroit. Let me just say that 16. I don't know if, as Ben said, I don't know if it's 18. If I could take Detroit, they're just not getting it done. Philly could put a $140 on them. Embiid leads the NBA in scoring right now. We look at stats like that because does maybe Embiid want to pad some stats against a Detroit Pistons team? So maybe he stays in a couple of extra minutes to get some extra points, widen up that spread. 16 points. I actually make this game 16.5. That's how bad this team is. So not laying Philly, but absolutely no reason to take Detroit.
And you have Pelicans going on to Charlotte. They're coming off a nice road win at Washington. Ingram, big game. Murphy, big game off the bench. They shot 47% from 3. No Zion in that one. He's questionable. We'll see if he comes back this go around. With Zion in, my lean to this game is to the Pelicans. Hornets, no Williams. PJ Washington, he's questionable. Not a team you want to be missing size against. Hell, Zion went and put up 36 in the paint against Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns. So you're missing your big body is going to be a problem here against this team. And you have Charlotte, just not the best at home. They're 4-8, 5-7 against the spread. They're 1-4 their last 5. Lean here has to be to the Pelicans, but got to see if Zion's in.
Yeah, remember Pelicans is the old Charlotte Bobcat team, and they've won 6 of their last 7 trips to Charlotte. They've covered all 7 of those trips. We're already without Williams. If PJ Washington is out, which he left that game early, he's more towards the doubtful side. Zion will dominate the paint if he plays. If not, this team's still deep enough. It's New Orleans and nobody. In this one, New Orleans looking better. Without Zion, the number 7 is right there. So if he was in, could I lay 7? It would be a tough one. But no reason in here at all to bet the Hornets, the home dog, especially with the way that the Pelicans have owned the matchup back in Charlotte.
Magic had some days off. Haven't played since Monday. They beat the Cavs by 10 in that one. You have this Magic team playing good ball right now, 11-2, 10-3 against the spread. But most of that at home, they're just 5-5, 6-4 against the spread on the road. Then you have Celtics back-to-back last night. They get the win. And we get the cover in that game. One of our winners last night, Cavs plus 11. Another one of those games that came down to a little bit of a closing line value for us. Boston, they've had trouble in this matchup. Now, Magic 6-1 against the spread last 7 meetings. They've won the last 4. They won both in Boston last year. Got to be a lean to the Magic in this one. Number may feel a bit short, but it's also Magic coming off an extra 3 days of rest. Celtics on a back-to-back. Got to see what's going on with Banchero here, but no interest here in laying points in Celtics. Magic, they can't cover in this matchup.
Okay, so unless you bet this game, we're talking about the game last night, the Cavs-Celtic game. Unless you bet this game the day before, you couldn't catch the winner by betting the Cavs, and that again, that's our edge. We grabbed out plus 11 on that game. That game closed 8.5 to number 9. Again, just trying to show you, all of a sudden the numbers are starting to fall. When the numbers fall, we're always on the right side of the numbers. Okay, we're never laying 9.5 when that game falls 9. We're always on the right side of the movement, so we're on the right side of that one. Getting back to this game today, Celtics are in a back-to-back. 12-0 at home, only undefeated team at home, but just 7-5 against the spread. Have had all kinds of problems with the Magic. Magic crushed them earlier this year in Orlando and won 3 of 4 meetings last year, including a sweep at the Boston Garden. tough. This is a tough choice. This is a tough matchup for the Celtics, especially that they're back-to-back. But this number is a little bit low. And we're looking at this game as 6. So last night you had the Cavs. Celtics closed 8.5 for 9. Now, granted, Celtics are back-to-back, but there's no travel. Just tough to make Cavs that much better on the road than the Magic. Also, you got that Banchero's questionable, so you have that in there. To me, the number's a little on the low side. Now, I'm not laying Boston because the Magic have absolutely owned this matchup in the last 2 years, but just not enough room for me to take Orlando here.
And we have the Hawks going back to Toronto. Second game of a 2-game set here. You have the big win from the Raptors the other night, 135-128. Both teams shot pretty well. Toronto, though, 53%. Siakam and Barnes, big games. And then you have this Atlanta team. And I mentioned it the other day. They're just right there with, as far as a bettor's perspective, right there with the Pistons, the Spurs, and the Wizards as far as off limits right now. 2-15 against the spread. Their last 17 games. Really tough to back. Sometimes in the second game with 2-game sets, the leans typically to that side and ever so slightly leans to that side, but can't have my money on Atlanta right now. Not getting it done, not playing good basketball. Toronto, they were pretty cold there for a little bit, starting to put it back together. We'll see if they can shrink 2 here against the Hawks. And over. A lot of over trends here, both in the meeting and the matchups. Both teams playing over. Atlanta, another one of those teams with Indiana, top 5 in scoring, top 5 in points allowed. Obviously, they play that style of basketball, and Toronto more so been playing that style of basketball lately.
Yeah, and just to clarify what Ben's saying, Atlanta is not as bad as Detroit or anybody, but as far as against the spread, they have not covered. Just getting a note here: Tyreek Hill will be listed as questionable. That'd be huge in that Miami Jet game. We'll keep an eye on that one. Getting back to this Atlanta Hawk game, they lost the game, the first game of this 2-game set. Young had a big game, but Toronto, everybody had a big game, a lot of scoring. Toronto went from earlier in the year to that couldn't put the ball in the bucket. All of a sudden, a lot of points. And the Hawks, they played at a tremendous pace. Look for a lot of points to get scored again in this one. But in these 2-game sets, when 2 teams are kind of equal, you kind of favor the dog, the team that lost the last one. They split 2 meetings last year in Toronto. Could be more of that, but they made the line short enough. I would make this number just a little bit higher, but again, because Raptors took the first one, lean a little bit to the Hawks. Not enough room here to take the Hawks. So again, this could be a game we'll be watching at halftime, or if there's any line movement or injuries.
And we have another home and home set. This one between Rockets and Memphis. Rockets get it done again the other night. You guys know the story with them at home. They've been doing it well there. Not as much on the road. We'll see if they can get it done now at Memphis. Jaren Jackson, back-to-back 40-plus games. He's playing good ball right now. Desmond Bane, he's questionable with the illness. We'll see if he comes back around. Grizzlies, not doing it at home, and they usually do. 1-10, 3-8 against the spread. You got a bad road team and a bad home team here. Second of a 2-game set. Lean has to be to Memphis. Just are they looking a little bit too more so to Morant coming back? And got to see what's going on with Bane. No Bane, no lean to Memphis at all in this game.
Yeah, this would be a huge spot for Memphis coming off the loss in a home and home. Now, Rockets have won both meetings this year, but both were held in Houston. Go back to Memphis now. Again, we talk about it, guys. Memphis was the best road team last year, and now they can't get a win. Best home team last year, and now they can't get a win at home. Their last 4 meetings in Memphis, the Grizzlies have won by a combined 83 points. So this would be the perfect spot for them. But again, Bane, their leading scorer, illness, missed the last game. He's got a questionable tag on him. This would be a low-scoring game. Bane in, I would need 4 points, but it's Grizzlies or nobody.
And then the last game on the card, and this is my really side, the heaviest lean of the day, Knicks at the Suns. You have the Knicks coming off that loss at Utah, bad shooting night there, and the last 4 games been playing a little bit brutal now. 1-3, they're giving up a shitload of points, 131 points per game. You have the Suns who coming off this decent game against the Nets. And I say decent just because they lost the game at home, but first game of the big 3, each of the big 3 shot over 50%. They look good together. No depth, though. You had Allen, Okogie, and Gordon all missed that game. The bench only gave him 14 points. Got to see if we can get at least one or two of those guys back. Kogi ruled out, but Allen or Gordon. Suns, they just dominated this matchup. That's what it comes down to for me. 9-2 against the spread. They've won 10 of the last 11 meetings. They've won, the last 5 in Phoenix, by an average of 12.5 points. So lean here is definitely to the Suns. Just want a little bit more of that depth. And the way the Knicks have been playing these last few games, got to be looking at the over or nothing.
Knicks, what happened? They've totally gone in a different direction. No. This is a Knicks team that went to Milwaukee to play that first round of the in-season tournament, leading the NBA in points allowed. 4 games later now, over the last 4 games, they've given up a buck 31.5 points per game. Now they are scoring more. Randall leading the charge there, and Barrett, who was great in the beginning. We've talked about it. Had the migraines, hit a dead spot, started to play a little better. He had another dismal night in Utah. So Randall's been carrying the squad. Phoenix just is a tough matchup. Always has been for the Knicks. 10-1, as Ben said, the Suns are 9-2 against the spread. The last 5 trips to Phoenix have all been beatdowns. Expect more of the same here. But 5 points right now for a Phoenix team that's going to only be their second game together, the Big Three. This game probably is 6.5 in a week or 2 from now. But the second game back didn't show me a lot. We'll see how they get going tonight. We expect Gordon to play. Gordon missed the last game because he usually does sit out that second of back-to-backs. Koji already ruled out. And then you got Grayson Allen, who's missed, I believe, 3 games it is now. He's going to be questionable. Again, you need those rotation players, but now you got Booker and Beal back, so those guys aren't going to mean as much.
That's the NBA slate, guys. No bets currently on the card. Like we said, those can change with injuries, and that can change with some line movement throughout the day, and then obviously halftime bets as well later on tonight. John, we got the 3 football games tomorrow. You want to touch on those briefly here?
Quick touch, man. We're talking about it. You got what do we got? We got 5 teams tomorrow that are 7-6 out of the 3 games, and the Detroit Lions, who pretty much I'm going to say a pretty safe bet to win their division. So all 6 teams, all 3 games, you've got all teams going for it. Not what we saw last night with one team that absolutely they gave up on the season. I tell my Master Edge members, we start getting to this point of the year and the bowl games. This is when you got to say that some ratings don't mean anything. The Chargers rating now means absolutely. If you don't come with any effort. So let me explain it a different way. My ratings, whether it's NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, that's the rating of the team coming with their A game. That's why teams that are looking ahead, or maybe they're a huge favorite, might pull a couple of guys at the end, or the other team has a revenge. You're not playing to that full number. So the Chargers right now, there's not a number you could make them. They just came in with absolutely no effort. Tomorrow we'll see the opposite of that. All teams, every game's got playoff implications. So great football we expect to see tomorrow. The one game that stands out to me in this game is the Vikings will be starting their 4th different quarterback in the last 7 games. Cousins gets hurt. They try the rookie. Dobbs comes in. Dobbs is now the emergency quarterback and not even the backup quarterback tomorrow, and they'll be going with Mullins. I'm going to compare that. Going on a short week, they go to Cincy, where it looks like Browning is really fitting in. So to me, that game is Cincy and nobody.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up Mullins coming in. I mean, just the best way to put it is Mullins wasn't good enough to cut it with the San Francisco Shanahan offense and all those weapons. Pretty sure I could go play quarterback for that Shanahan system. So you can't get it done there. I get it. Minnesota has some nice pieces. Just going to be tough. 4th different QB, like John said. Have to be a look here at Cincinnati. And big credit to Browning. I mean, obviously Cincinnati, the weapons as well, and match up nice. But 34 points in back-to-back weeks. Get the home edge as well. Agree with you on that look in that game. This Steelers-Indy game, pretty interesting. You have obviously Steelers coming off back-to-back losses versus 2-10 teams. You have this Colts team who snapped a little 4-game win streak against Browning and that Bengals team. They gave up 34 to them. Prior to that, their defense was playing phenomenal on that little 4-game win streak. And Pittsburgh, what do they have under the belt? What does Mike Tomlin have trying to keep this season going? Really unacceptable losses the last couple of weeks. You get the gifts of Cleveland and Cincinnati in your division with the QB injuries, and you can't take advantage of it against some 2-10 teams to capitalize. So are they mentally out of it? Are they done? What's going on with them? Lean has to be a little bit to Pittsburgh. Indy, not the best home team. They've had some struggles the last couple of seasons at home. 2-9, 4-7 against the spread. Pittsburgh been pretty good on the road. 7-2 straight up and against the spread. So as far as all that goes, it favors them. They're on the extra rest. I would think Tomlin, extra days, extra time to prepare, get them fired up, get them ready to go for this game. Just do they have it mentally to show up here this week, John?
Can they get it done, Pittsburgh? Look, Pittsburgh has gotten quite lucky with their schedule. I think they got Cleveland early in the year without Watson. Yeah. They got Cincy without Burrow, and it was actually the first game Browning started. Their offense has been an absolute disaster the whole year. They fire the offensive coach, and they come up with a huge game against Cincy in the first game Browning plays, but right back to being that terrible offense. Now with Pickett out, you've got Trubisky running that offense. They do get a break because they played on Thursday. You had Watt and Highsmith, both with concussions, but they're both now probable coming into this game with the Colts. Colts got lucky against the Titans 2 weeks ago, blocking a couple of punts and then a missed extra point, or they'd have a 2-game losing streak. They looked horrible at Cincy last week. Not a great team at home. Pittsburgh's good on the road. This is a must game for both teams. Pittsburgh, I think's got a little more. They've been there type of deal. Yep. Just can't trust either of these teams. Need a little more room, but would only want Pittsburgh in this spot, but need a little more room on this one.
And then that last game, Broncos at Detroit. You have this Broncos team, nice win against the Chargers, but obviously Herbert goes down. And looking at it last night, really not a nice win against the Chargers if you want to break it down further. So they get that 24-7 win there. Still, though, the last several weeks been playing great ball, 6-1, 5-2 against the spread. And then with this Detroit team, I mean, the praise with Goff at the start of the season was the streak without an interception and the lack of turnovers. They're taking care of the football. They're dominating the trenches. And don't get me wrong, they have a laundry list of injuries that have built up throughout the season. Still got a couple of O-linemen banged up and questionable heading into this week. But 10 turnovers in the last 4 games, and they're starting to slide here. Is this their little bounce-back opportunity here against Denver? We'll say Denver last in the NFL as far as rushing yards allowed. That could be what the Lions need as far as helping taking care of the football, just being able to run all over them.
Throw the defensive stats for Denver out the window. They're a different team than they were in the first third of the year. Denver now 6-1 their last 7 weeks. This is a different Denver team, red hot. Denver, Detroit. This team, all high praise, this, that. Well, take it easy with Detroit. Look what they've done in their last 4 weeks. So they get a miracle comeback against the Bears to win that game. They don't cover. They have Green Bay at home, a decimated Packer team on Thanksgiving Day in Detroit, and they get beat up. They got pretty much blown out of that game. They do win at New Orleans, another team that was beat up, and then they come home for that rematch. They go to Chicago, rather, for that rematch against the Bears, and they're pretty much dominated. 4 weeks, 2-2, 1-3 against the spread, not looking good at all. My line on this game is 4. Also, Denver, just a little more to play. As I said from the beginning, Denver a 7-6 team in with a bunch of teams in the AFC looking for that wild card spot or possibly a shot at the Chiefs. Detroit, nice little bit of a lead there in the North, in the NFC. So they got a little more breathing room. For me, if the line goes higher, it's dog or nobody. But again, that should be a good one.
And we'll see what ends up going there with some of those question marks for the weekend, some of those question marks for the NBA slate tonight. Like John said at the start, we had 2 bets set later in the evening yesterday. I believe it was on Wednesday. We had 3 bets set later in the evening. Could be more of the same tonight. If you guys want those, make sure you sign up, massaedge.com, or download the Massa Edge app. We were running ice cold for a few weeks there, a couple of big winning days in a row. I will say, as cold as things get, they get equally as hot as in the inverse, and we'll see if we start heading in that direction. But if it is, you guys don't want to miss out on that.
Certainly don't. Let's get to work. Friday, big day for injury reports for the NFL. 8 NBA games today, 10 tomorrow. We're on top of everything, guys. Let's win some games.
Let's win some games. That's